in this war. I think that the world of human rights has developed a weapon. I call it the human rights weapon. It's one which inverts victim and perpetrator. It's one which is designed to deflect attention from the human rights abuses by those who violate human rights. It is intended to circle the wagons and to develop excuses for hatred and for terrorism. It's a tried and true formula after all, isn't it? To create imaginary enemies, to exaggerate what is a kernel of truth, and to divert attention from the real violations in our midst. A Danish cartoon episode has proved to be the catalyst.
U.S. Ambassador Christopher Stephens, who has been killed in that attack in Benghazi. It wasn't clear if the ambassador was in his car or the Libyan consulate when the attack took place. It was a rocket strike in which the U.S. ambassador was killed. The Libyan ambassador and 3 staff members have been killed when gun.
So that the United Nations Human Rights Council adopted a resolution called Defamation of Religions on the basis of this. This has happened in this year. This resolution was adopted by a vote which saw every Western democracy vote against, but was adopted nonetheless. What's interesting is this resolution called Defamation of Religions only mentions one religion. Islam is the only religion that apparently is subject to defamation in the world today. Now it's only going to be about religion, and which feeds back to their definition of religious discrimination, which highlights Islam and Muslims in particular. So that essentially the human rights system of the United Nations, which is very vast, is translated into 6 languages, webcast around the world, has been hijacked. There is no other word for it. What's the next step? The next step is an all-out assault on universality, on the general norms of human rights protection. Now, that leads me to the question of, well, why? Why is this happening anyway? Basically, I call it doing the math. The United Nations has 192 members. 117 of them belong to the non-aligned movement, so-called non-aligned movement. It's aligned against the United States in most everything Western democracies stand for. But the largest single voting bloc in the non-aligned movement is the Organization of the Islamic Conference. 56 members. They call it 57 because they say Palestine is a country. Largest single voting bloc in the group with the majority of countries in the United Nations. Take the Human Rights Council of the UN. It has 47 members. The majority of seats are held, or votes are held, by the African and Asian Regional Group, and the OIC holds a majority of seats within the Asian and African regional groups. So they control everything that goes on at the Human Rights Council. It isn't a surprise. They want a vote, they get a vote, that's the end of the discussion. So it's important to understand that this is strictly a matter of numbers, a game which we cannot win at the United Nations. The question has to be asked, how genuine is this concern with human rights violations against Muslims? Well, 70% of all the resolutions ever adopted at the Human Rights Council in its first year and a half of operation, coming on the heels of the so-called reform of the UN Human Rights Commission, are about Israel. Nothing on honor killings against Muslim women, nothing against suicide bombers killing thousands of Muslims in Iraq, nothing on stoning of Muslim women under the criminal code in so many Muslim states, nothing about public executions in Iran, nothing about systematic torture in Egypt. So are they serious about their concern for human rights violations against Muslims? No.
To some of our viewers, viewer discretion is advised. The 54-year-old Riyati binti Sapubi was beheaded by a single blow of sword earlier this month. Saudi officials then dangled her corpse from a helicopter to make sure the public could see the grotesque result of the execution. Indonesia has also stopped sending migrant workers to Saudi Arabia until Sapubi's case is resolved. Riyadh has carried out 27 beheadings so far this year.
Lie or wipe the tears that have already dried for a crime she so persistently denied. She's buried chest deep, the moderate to sleep no matter how hard she weeps she's buried chest high. Her arms can't stop the stones that fly or wipe the tears that have already dried for a crime she so persistently denied. And this is Allah's eternal reply. 1400 years of backwards law, a tragic flaw of the primitive claw. The tribe of homosexuals, Qawm Lut as they say, Sharia is clear on how they should pay. The price for their gay display, life, doesn't matter which way. Abu Bakr got them with a tumbling. Apostates, remember those who have bled, to speak the words Muslims leave unsaid, killed for the sake of those misled, submit now or be left dead. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has come up with such a fair rule, the devil himself couldn't be so cruel. She's buried chest high, halfway deep, while the moderates are still fast asleep, while the world stands silent. Her testimony's cheap, stones thrown by religious sheep. Witches were burned long ago till the flame of freedom began to glow and we learned to say the word no. No.
هم اليهود هؤلاء هم الذين يجب أن يذبحوا ويجب أن يقتلوا.
They are killing the infidels just like the preacher in the mosque told them to do. It's their duty to kill them.
I watched anti-Semitism since I was a young kid, and now the world is reaping. These eggs are hatching, and what's coming out is literally something that comes out of Nazi Germany.
I think the worst form of child abuse is teaching a child to hate. What we have on Palestinian TV and on Saudi TV over and over again are little kids being taught songs, I want to be a suicide bomber.
The Muslims do to their own children is even worse.
This is a scene from the television series Al-Shatat. It was broadcast on satellite TV stations that reach hundreds of millions of viewers.
اسمع بدنا دم طفل مسيحي قبل الفصح مشان الفطير.
شالوه هذا شافكم؟ لا. متأكد؟
طبعا. معناتها خلينا نبدأ فورا.
مدام انتوا على البيت.
تكرم حبيبي. بعد شوي بنروح.
Yet the Al-Shatat film was able to include a video depiction of this ancient blood libel as if this is real Jewish ideology.
There is no shame in Arab media. In the degree they are ready to cover hate speech and lies, outright lies against the Western Israel.
التي تصنع الفطير من دم الأطفال الأبرياء.
The propaganda of Islam is very similar to the propaganda of Nazism. It's the same hate speech, paranoia, and us against them.